So now we'll come to the last section, which is large language models. So LLM is a integral part of Gen AI. So we'll talk about the definition of LLM. What are the different LLMs which are available? How to use them? Okay, and how these LLMs are created. Okay, so these are nothing but language models. So the definition is large language models are pre-trained deep learning models. Okay. So we discussed about deep learning models. If you recall from the first class, I showed you a couple of models. Okay, so the deep learning models are built using the deep learning techniques. So like LSTM is one. Then if you recall the autoencoder, VAR. Okay, so all these are different models. So those are standard models. Now, based on the complexity of the textual data, a lot of complex models will also come up. For example, we have a model called BERT, okay, LLaMA. So these are models which uses the deep learning concept for lots of other things like summarization and question and answering, etc., etc. So it all started with word prediction models. So if I give a text, so what is going to be the next word? Okay, based on the previous words that it has seen in the model. So LLMs are called large models now. So why they are called large models? It is because it is trained on a huge corpus of text. Okay, so massive corpus of text, and the data source is usually taken from contents which are online. It can be news portals, it can be social media, it can be Twitter accounts, it can be blogs, or it could be reviews. So all these are the sources for the models. So it can take the data from, so these are freely available. Okay, so that becomes the data source. Now, what is the purpose of all these data? So it can do what we discussed some time back, the capabilities of language models, and that is summarization, new text generation, prediction, etc., etc. So all the automation tools, automation activities that we saw. So it can be used for that along with code generation and new data generation. Now, whenever these models are built by using the deep learning techniques, it requires billions of parameters. Now, what are these parameters? Now recall when we were building the deep learning model, when we saw the example of the playground. So we had two features. So let's say features are x1 and x2. Okay, this is x1 and this is x2. Now let's say I only have one hidden layer which has three nodes. So this is node 1, this is node 2, and this is node 3. And it has only one output layer, let's say output. Now the weights are assigned to each of these nodes. So for each feature, the weights. So how many parameters are there? 1, 2. Now this and this. So now total how many parameters? 2 plus 2, 4. Now finally for this, 6. So total number of parameters are how much? 6. Then there is something called as a bias term, which is introduced. So for every layer you have a bias term. So total how many parameters does this have? So 6 plus 1 equals 7 parameters. Okay, now these 7 parameters, they come into the next model, next layer, which is the output layer. So here how many are there? So this is 3 plus 1, 4. Okay, so total number of parameters in this model is how much? 7 from input to the first layer and from the layer to the output layer. So 7 plus 4 is how many? 11. Okay, so there are 11 parameters in this simple model. So what are these parameters? Nothing but the weights. So large language models have millions of parameters. So imagine the size of the model. Imagine the creation of this model, how many layers will it have, how many nodes it will have, look at the depth. Okay, and because of such, the deep layered models, they are able to do a very good prediction or very good data generation. So that is why it takes time to build these models, because the quantity of the data is huge and also the quality has to be taken care. So building the data and also building the model takes a lot of time. And because it is done using the neural network, it is completely dependent on the hardware. So you require a very solid system. The hardware has to be very fast. And usually when you are building these LLMs, the language models like ChatGPT, it on an average takes about 25 to 30 days for the models to get built. Okay, so you can imagine how huge these models are. Okay, and that too on a super fast system. So 25-30 days is when is the average building time. Okay, so a lot of people they use the ready-made models which are there in the market, which are provided by these different communities what we discussed. And if you are into hardcore research, and if you have the bandwidth, if you have the money, and if you have the infrastructure, then you can build your own models. Otherwise, most of the time you can only use the models which are available for free, or you can pay for it. Now, the large language models are designed to do multiple things. For example, summary, question and answers, text translation, etc., etc. But it can also do specific tasks. Okay, for example, it can do only classification. It can only do named entity recognition. So you can fine tune these models to do a specific task also by taking a smaller data set and training that data onto that particular problem statement. Okay, so that is done by a lot of these models like BERT, what we discussed some time back. Thank you, everyone.